right, Alexander, let's talk about Viktor Orban in Hungary and how they're handling the CV crisis. And well, Orban it's no secret that Orban is not exactly a favorite amongst the neoliberal EU Brussels crowd. And they've been calling him a dictator now since the minute he took office, pretty much, because of the way he runs Hungary, and he runs it against the neoliberal doctrine and the neoliberal dogma. And he's been successful at doing it, to be honest. I mean, Hungary's a success story within the European Union, and it must drive them absolutely crazy. But now with the CV crisis, he has enacted certain laws and powers, along with the parliament as well, to give him a lot of power in the country. But it's not very different with what's going on in most countries in Europe. I mean, here where I am, things are pretty authoritarian, to say the least. So, I mean, while there are some things about what Orban has enacted in Hungary that seem a little too much, it doesn't seem like it's any different than where I am right now, and probably not that much different from where most people watching us are, at least in Europe. So what do you think of what's going on in Hungary?
Right. Well, let's just talk about Orban's record. I mean, he took over a country, Hungary, which was in a severe economic crisis. The previous government, which was the socialist government, which was the Socialist Party of Hungary, was the former Communist Party of Hungary, which had ruled Hungary ever since the 1940s, when it had been installed in power by the Soviet Union. And of course, it lost power during the events of 1989, but then it regained it through elections, changing its name to the Socialist Party. Anyway, it was a disastrously failed government, and its prime minister, the leader of that government, actually openly admitted that it had lied to the people. I mean, it was quite a terrible situation. So an awful government, an unsuccessful government, a dishonest government, a society deeply cynical. Corruption was off the scale. And I didn't go there at the time, but I've heard from people who did that Budapest, like many of these places in Eastern Europe, had become basically a gigantic red light district, or large parts of it were. So Hungary was not in a good shape at all. And Orban comes in with Fidesz, and he provides a strong government, clear lines of control. He goes against many of the neoliberal orthodoxies, and he pulls Hungary back. He does it by repatriating an awful lot of Hungarian companies. So, I mean, one of the things that had been a major driver of corruption, apparently, was that a lot of Hungarian companies had been bought out at absolutely bargain basement prices by the usual flock of carpetbaggers that come in from the West, from the United States and Europe and whatever. They bought them all up and had run them into the ground. Well, very unusually and very remarkably, Orban did something very like what Putin did in Russia, was that he clawed many of these companies back. And that, I think, by the way, is the single thing that has caused the greatest anger, because he brought back these companies back under Hungarian control. There's the usual criticisms that he doled them out amongst his cronies. This is what you always hear. People say the same about Putin, that, when he brought Russian companies back under Russian control, that he was basically handing them out to his friends, and that this was somehow a corrupt bargain, whereas in fact he was re-sovereigntizing them. I mean, which is what Orban did in Hungary. And the Hungarian economy started to recover fast, and the situation was stabilized. And even people whom I know who are very, very critical of Orban, and there are many things, no doubt, to be critical of Orban for, are agreed that there has been a radical improvement in conditions in Hungary. That doesn't mean you have to agree with everything Orban does, but overall, he has run a successful, economically very successful government. And that explains the very high popularity he has within Hungary. Now, as always happens, people who run these sorts of policies, who go against the neoliberal orthodoxies, who are considered to be, who try to bring back companies and bring them under, local national control,
and succeed.
Succeed, especially if they succeed, invariably get called authoritarians, populists, dictators, all those things. And to be very clear, Orban has indeed done certain things to centralize power. He's cleared out the bureaucracy of all sorts of people, which is very much what Putin did in Russia, cleared out all kinds of people from the bureaucracies who were associated with the old system. And remember, we're talking about the corrupt and unsuccessful old system. And this is always and invariably classified as, dictatorial and authoritarian and all that. But I have never accepted these views. It seems to me that you had a popular, democratic government which has done these things and which has stabilized Hungary. The EU detests it. They hate it in Russia. They hate it in Hungary. And in Hungary's case, they have a particular reason for being angry about it, because, of course, he's doing it whilst Hungary is within the EU. So he is not following the neoliberal, the neoliberal rule book, but he's doing it from inside the EU. So that makes many people within the EU very, very angry. And of course, because he is also a sovereigntist and has become, because he's a successful leader and a very good diplomat, by the way, because he's a successful leader, he's become the de facto leader of the sovereigntists in the EU, the person who is resisting the integrationist policies of Merkel and Hollande and Merkel and Emmanuel Macron and all those people, because he's opposed to all of that, all of those policies. They absolutely detest him even further, and because he took a very, very strong line on the during the migrant crisis in 2015, when, as I said, Merkel announced without any consultation that Germany would accept migrants from the Middle East and wherever, and flung Germany's doors open, and that effectively meant flinging Europe's doors open. Orban led the opposition to that in the EU and got the support of many governments, the Polish government, Slovak government, all kinds of governments rallied to Orban on this issue. Well, that's even further a reason to hate him. So now he is faced, like all other European governments are faced, with this massive health crisis caused by corona. And he is doing very much the same things that many European governments are doing. He is essentially ruling by decree. Angela Merkel is ruling by decree. So is Emmanuel Macron, even more so, if I may say so. In Britain, Boris Johnson's government, except of course he's out of, he's not in the government at the moment, but the government is also largely ruling by decree. It's imposing, all these governments are imposing lockdowns, all these governments are imposing massive controls of economic policy, all of these governments are preventing people from, in France, you're not allowed to go out even to exercise. You can't leave your home even to exercise. All of these very authoritarian and draconian steps are being taken. Orban is doing exactly the same in Hungary. He takes this crisis equally seriously. Maybe you can argue that these responses are excessive, but can I stress again, they are no different from what other European countries are doing. But of course, when they happen in European countries, when they're done by Emmanuel Macron or Giuseppe Conte in Italy, or Angela Merkel in Germany, or Boris Johnson in Britain, well, that's fine. These are, good Democrats. When they're done by Viktor Orban in Hungary, this, of course, is proof that this is further proof that he is the dictator. Now, I say that's a broad brush picture of this legislation. You can go and unpack it in detail if you wish. it's not substantially and significantly more detailed than the sort of legal enactments you get elsewhere. The only major difference, and the only thing which I happen to think Orban is also wrong about, is that it has no sunset clause. In most countries, in fact, in all other European countries that I know of, and in Russia also, by the way, there are provisions in these rules that they're only temporary, and there's a cut-off date, and if the crisis, if the health crisis is still continuing, then they have to be renewed at that point. Orban's new law, the law that he's piloted through the parliament and which has granted him these emergency powers, doesn't have a sunset clause. I happen to think that's a mistake and wrong, but I would point out that in Britain, the sunset clause, which does exist and which expires next week, is automatically renewed by the government itself. It doesn't have to go to parliament. It doesn't have to do anything like that. So I think that in practical terms, I don't really see the difference. I mean, I think that Hungary is doing essentially the same things as other European countries are, EU countries, Britain, which is no longer an EU country, and Russia. And I don't really see, that this is something that is so profoundly different from what's happening in those countries. The only difference is not in what Hungary is doing and in what Orban is doing. It is in attitudes to Orban. The fact that, as I said, the EU doesn't like him because he's done all kinds, and the neoliberal elite doesn't like him. They're attacking him not because of what he's doing now, but what he did previously and what he's come to represent. And that's really what is driving all these criticisms of these new laws and of all these rules. If, when they're done by Macron, they attract no criticism, right? Or at least no criticism from these people, and very little notice.
Yeah, hypocrisy. What's good for me is not good for thee. That's the whole neoliberal outlook on things. That's it. They just don't like Orban. No. Period. So they're just going to call him a dictator no matter what he does. They would have called him a dictator if he left the entire country open and decided to implement a herd immunity type of thing. They would have said, "Oh my God, he's a crazy dictator. Look what he's doing."
Well, exactly.
He's doing exactly what all the other countries are doing. So they're mad at him for that as well. So, I mean, it's a no-win situation.
It's exactly. I mean, if Orban if he'd followed the sort of, Belarus,
like the Swedish models, for example.
Swedish model, they would have said, this is further proof that this is a narcissistic, a populist dictator. He's indifferent to the health of his own people. It makes Hungary, this dangerous center of contagion in Europe. That's exactly what they would have said. And now, as I said, he does essentially the same as Merkel and Macron are doing. And as I said, he's a dictator. He's a dictator whatever he does. I mean, the only people, of course, who are not impressed by all of this are people in Hungary. And I understand that the measures he's taking in Hungary are popular, like everything else pretty much he's done.
Yeah, they hate him for a couple of reasons, Alexander. Number one, they hate him because he went against the Merkel's migrant fiasco. Yeah. So they hate him for that.
Yeah.
They also hate him because he promotes Hungarian values, and those values, are Christianity, Catholicism, the family, and traditions like that. And to an EU kleptocrat, if you mention Christianity and family values, that's like, taking garlic and a cross and sunlight to a vampire. I mean, they absolutely despise these things. So that's the other thing. And he went after George Soros.
Well, indeed, he did, exactly. I mean, that's the other thing. Who's, of course, but let's never forget a Hungarian. I mean, he was born in Hungary. So George Soros and Orban have particular animus because, of course, Soros embodies globalization. and neoliberalism, and Orban is opposed to it. So there's that sort of tension between them. But of course, going back to the Christian points, I mean, it's particularly interesting to see some people in Germany being critical of Orban, when of course the party that governs Germany is the Christian Democratic Union. I mean, we this isn't, which also supposedly promotes Christian values. And by the way, to a certain extent, it does. But what is okay in Germany with Merkel, the pastor's daughter, and all that, is somehow very offensive when it happens in Hungary, which is again this all very distorted view. I think that Christianity is. I mean, there is a genuine anti-Christian element in a lot of these attitudes. I mean, you could see it. I mean, you see it in a lot of neoliberal commentary, both in Europe and in the United States. So there's no question about this. I think what makes it particularly toxic is that, of course, he's a Christian anti-globalist. It's the combination of the two. I mean, they could possibly accept the one. They could possibly, but the combination of the two together makes him a monster in their eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they hate Christianity.
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking about Europe or the United States. The neoliberals have actually waged a war against Christianity, because Christianity represents everything that they're against.
Well, yeah. I mean, they don't like the fact that he's Christian. They don't like the fact that, as I said, he has an interventionist economic policy. They don't like the fact that he pursues, as I said, that he seeks to keep Hungarian companies under Hungarian control. I mean, this is again extremely troubling.
God forbid.
God forbid, exactly. He doesn't want to take Hungary into the Eurozone.
That's my next question, and we'll wrap it up there. It's great to see what Orban is doing, and Orban has the ability to do these things because he doesn't have the damn euro.
Exactly.
For their monetary system, for their finances. They don't use the euro. If he had the euro, if Hungary was in the eurozone, then the minute Orban started enacting any of these policies that are pro-Hungarian, the European Central Bank would cut off his funding right away. But because he's not tied to the euro, he can tell everybody in Brussels to go F off. He can do whatever he wants because they don't have him by the financial balls, so to speak. If they had his whole financial and monetary system, his whole fiscal policy was being controlled by Brussels, he would never be able to enact any of the policies that he's enacted to bring Hungary to the success where it is today. That's why he can do these things. That's why Poland can do what it does. And all the countries that are not in the euro have a freedom that Greece and Italy and Spain and these countries simply do not have.
Absolutely. Can I just say something? I was reading the incredibly complicated procedures, internal constitutional procedures that Italy would have to follow if it was to leave the euro. It's almost as if Italy is constitutionally locked in by its own constitution to do this. And this is not this is not chance. This was actually done by Italian politicians who wanted to sort of, lock in Italy. Now, Hungary, Orban, won't do any of that. I mean, he's absolutely kept Hungary out of the Eurozone. So exactly as you said, he doesn't have to worry about, his banks being cut off in the way that the Greek banks were cut off in 2015, and the Cypriot banks got very close to being cut off also, as I so well remember. He doesn't have to
robbed.
Well, exactly. He doesn't have to accept bailout packages. He doesn't have to do any of those things. He has a degree of he has genuine economic room for maneuver. He has the space to make decisions. And of course, European Court of Human Rights, the European Court of Justice, not the European Court of Human Rights, can make decisions saying that his actions were illegal. They've just incidentally said that his refusal to accept refugees in 2015 during the migrant crisis was illegal, you can just ignore it because they're not able to do anything. They can't cut off his banks, and they can't throw him off the European Council, which is and deprive him of his voting rights, because he's as I said, he's a good diplomat, which is the other thing that annoys them. And he's got various allies in the EU, notably Poland, which would veto any step to do that. So he drives them mad. But I do want to say this again, coming back to these particular this particular law. You may have lots of concerns about many of the sort of authoritarian provisions of that law. But if you do, then you should have the same concerns about Italy, Britain, Germany, Spain, Italy, all of them.
Everywhere.
All of them are doing the same things. Don't single out Orban for doing just what all the others are doing. I mean, it doesn't make him a dictator and them Democrats when he's doing the same thing as they are doing. I mean,
his track record is much better than Angela Merkel's or Macron's or any of these guys. Much better.
I mean, as I said, Hungary has experienced economic revival and economic growth. What has Italy achieved? What has France achieved? What's happened in Greece even? You can't compare.
Yeah, that's what drives them mad.
And that's what drives them mad. Yeah.
All right, Alexander, thank you very much, guys. If you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below, click on the notifications bell, smash that like, look for us on iTunes and SoundCloud as well for an audio copy of this video. And please go to PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribe Star and donate to the Duran. It really helps us out a lot. And also go to the Duran Shop, pick up some merchandise like the polo Alexander is wearing, or maybe some magic mugs, and also pick up some ebooks. Every ebook that you purchase, we will donate that money to Feed the Fight in the US to help frontline professionals in nurses and doctors, and as well people who are working in the restaurant business who are also having a hard time of it. So pick up an ebook as well and help out a good cause. And we also have, I believe you have with you, our friends, our very good friends at Patriotic Legacy. And their amazing product made in the USA, ships everywhere in the world, ships internationally, the Patriot Beacon.
Absolutely. This is the Patriot Beacon. It is the best torch I have ever had. And I've always had torches with me because I'm a person who likes to drive, and you should always have a torch with you in your car, because if it breaks down or anything goes wrong, especially at night, especially if you don't have good night vision, which I don't. I mean, when I drive, by the way, I have special night driving glasses, but they're not really suitable for wearing outside the car. But if you get out and you have to sort of look around and find yourself where you are, you have a torch like this, and this is an absolutely amazing torch. It covers phenomenal. It gives a phenomenal light and distances, and you can flashlight. You can also flash, which can act as a good signal. And it also has an alarm. If you need an alarm and you need to sort of call somebody and let them know where you are, like my dogs, for example, but that's another, I'll talk about that in a moment. And if you get lost, you've got a compass here, and it's solar powered, so it never ever goes out of power. You don't have to worry about things like batteries, which can be really annoying, because sometimes your torch, when you need it, if it's got batteries, it's happened to me, by the way, you suddenly find it doesn't work because the battery power is gone, or it's working very erratically. No such problems with this one. And it's got a magnet. You can stick it onto your car, in your place on your car. So this is the perfect torch for having with you in a car. It's also, by the way, an incredibly handy tool. If, perish the thought, you're in an accident and you have to get out of the car, well, you can break your windscreen and do something like that. And of course, if you're tied into your seatbelt, well, there's a seatbelt cutter also. So it's a wonderful accessory. It's got one other amazing thing. As I said, it's solar powered, but you can also recharge your phone, your smartphone, or your iPad, or your tablet, or whatever, or even your laptop. You've got the port there, so it's got all of these amazing accessories. But the thing I like about it most is that it is so well made. It just oozes quality. If you hold it, you understand exactly what I mean. It's so strong and well constructed that you just know when you're holding it and handling it that you have a really good quality item. And I should say that I'm somebody who fumbles, so having something like this that is solid in my hands gives you that tremendous reassurance that I'm not going to just drop it, it's going to fall away, and or if I do drop it, that it won't just break on me, which, by the way, this doesn't. And I should tell you, I have dropped it and it's been in perfect shape. So it's so strong and well made. I think it could withstand a meteor. Now, the reason you're hearing my dog bark is because, of course, I call my dogs with the alarm, and you can see her there. She absolutely responds instantly to the alarm. So this is enormously useful for that respect, because I like to walk my dogs at night. We have to walk them at night and I need a torch to be able to keep track of them. If you want the perfect torch, a torch that you can use in every situation. You can use it in the house. You can use it when you're driving. You can use it when you're walking your dogs. You can use it when you want to repair something in your basement, or if there's a power cut. If all the lights in your home go dark because something like that happens. Well, this is the absolute perfect torch for you. It won't go out provided you keep it in, in the light and the sun. It will recharge automatically. It is pretty much indestructible. It will call your dogs to you if you need to have your dogs called to you, and you can actually feel safe with it when you're out and about, when you're driving, in all situations. So here it is, the Patriot Beacon, made by our friends at Patriotic Legacy. It ships all over the world. It's the best torch you will ever get. And Alex, at the end of this program, will tell you how to get one. Now, we don't, of course, just talk about the Patriotic Legacy and their Patriot Beacon. We have all our own products too. We have our amazing Duran mugs, our magic mugs, like this magnificent one, which I've also spoken about how solid and strong and elegant and supremely perfect they all are, and how they keep your tea and coffee hot, and your hot chocolate hot if you're my wife, and your beer and champagne cold. And we also have, of course, our other amazing things, equally high quality, like this beautiful polo shirt I'm wearing at the moment, which, by the way, I've been out walking my dogs recently in the park, and it's the perfect polo shirt to wear on a hot day when you're walking your dogs, and it's the perfect polo shirt also to wear if you're doing après ski, as I was doing in the Alps a few weeks ago, and if you're on the sea, in a nice hotel, drinking your cocktail or something like that, you have the perfect polo shirt for that kind of occasion. It's 100% cotton, like all our shirts are. It comes in many colors. We have other shirts too, short-sleeved and long-sleeved, and we've also got V-neck shirts, t-shirts, and we've also got hats, hoodies, stickers, and of course, let me round off by reminding you about our ebooks and what Alex said, that we're giving all the money we make from our ebooks now to support health workers and the people, the restaurateurs who are trying to provide food for them. This is a time of great crisis. We're doing what we can to support those people who are on the front line. So come to our shop, support the Duran, support our friends at Patriotic Legacy, buy yourself one of these amazing torches, buy yourself these amazing products. Alex will tell you how to do it.
You can go to the Duran Shop in the description box down below, the duranshop.com. And for the Patriot Beacon, you will find a link for the Patriot Beacon as well in the description box down below. And when you put the code Duran20 on checkout, you will get 20% off the Patriot Beacon. Remember that code, Duran20, 20% off the Patriot Beacon. The link is in the description box down below. Alexander Mercouris, thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.